Welcome to Behind the Podium, a podcast series brought to you by Fusion Learning Partners that lets you hear what speakers are saying before or after the podium mic is turned on. Join me, your host, Jasper Appleton, to find out what makes these speakers tick and find out new insights on topics that matter to you on each episode of Behind the Podium. Welcome to Behind the Podium podcast. I'm your host, Jasper Appleton, and with me today is Michael Bonner. Michael is an elementary school teacher at South Greenville Elementary in North Carolina who is dedicated towards shaping future generations through innovation in education. Thank you for joining me, Michael.
Of course. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. So, people may know you from The Ellen Show and the inspiring work you've done since as a speaker, but they may not know the story behind how you've got noticed by Ellen. Can you tell the listeners about your experience and how you got recognized by her?
Yeah, man. So I was in my third year of teaching at South Greenville. I was teaching second grade. I'll never forget it. And during that particular year, everybody knows that when you're starting out as a teacher, that the beginning teacher, those first 5 years is like the danger zone. You're trying to figure out, will the teacher be able to last? Can they make it through? And the school that I was serving at is a beautiful school full of amazing students, but they had different type of circumstances and stuff around them that made teaching there just a little bit harder. And that third year, man, I was ready to quit. I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. It is frustrating. It is overwhelming. It was so much. So what ended up happening was I came back into that school year, going into my fourth year teaching, saying, if I want to last in this profession, I just need to do something different. I don't want to just teach by the standards. I don't want to teach the traditional way. I want to have some fun. I want to liven up my classroom. I want to improve the community. I want to switch how I'm teaching things. That's what I started to do. And I was teaching my students an assessment, a standard, which was 2RL.1, the essential questions of who, what, when, where, why, and how when you're dealing with literature and fiction text. And I gave the test to my students and they bombed it. So I said, you know what? I'm going to make a bet with you all cute little second graders. If you pass this test, I'm going to make you a music video. And it's just what we're going to do based on the content I'm teaching them. And believe it or not, man, they did that. They ended up coming back and having some fun with it. And they passed the assessment. I posted on Facebook. And the rest was literally with history. I didn't intend to go on to Ellen, but it's funny how some things in life sort of choose you.
Seriously, yeah. And then fast forward and you're getting flown out to LA. I'd just like to get a little backstage story of that music video shoot with your students, as well as with celebrities like Ice Cube and Migos. Where does rolling around on scooters with Big Sean and your second graders rank on the long list of flexes you have?
Oh my gosh, man. That is up there. That is up there. But I think it was the feeling of it. I can, to this moment, I can still remember the emotions and the energy I was feeling as you're watching students who the airport is 5 minutes from them, but none of them have ever been on a flight before. Probably one or two out of the 18 that went. And to see them smiling without care in the world, knowing that their food and lodging was taken care of, knowing they were having the time of their life while they were with celebrities, with professional equipment and stuff, that sort of was more confirmation for me personally in my own life of what I believe my mission in life is to do. And that's really to shift what does education look like, to try to provide opportunities to as many teachers and students as I possibly can. And more importantly, to share the strategies and things I'm doing in my classroom that I deem that are effective. And I can base that upon the reactions that my students give me in their grades and through their interactions with me on a daily basis.
Yeah, right. And I just had a funny thought when I was seeing all those kids at Ellen. I was just like, how did Bonner get these permission slips, man? Like,
oh yeah, listen,
had a tough time getting mom on to sign up.
It was a week turnaround. It was the craziest turnaround in the world. It was like a Friday, and Courtney, I'll never forget, Courtney's the producer for Ellen. She was like, "Hey, Michael, Ellen's thinking about bringing you and your students back to the show." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, so nonchalant, yeah.
Yeah, and I talked to them before, so I'm thinking going into the weekend, oh, it's just a thing. I'm gonna go home with my family, have a good time. And then that Monday, they were like, "No, we're ready to rock and roll. Matter of fact, we're trying to bring you all at the beginning of next week." So I don't think a lot of people know, but when you are taking a field trip specifically out of state, I know in North Carolina, you have to get approved by the Board of Education. So they had to rush that through the Board of Education. We had to start getting suitcases and things for kids, carry-on luggage, the permission slips out, the waivers and stuff taken care of, picking which 7 teachers are going to go on the trip. So it was a really cool experience, man. And it was rushed as far as the preparation, but that's something that I will never forget for the rest of my life. And my goal is to keep duplicating and replicating the experience. And that's why I built Bonneville. It's bigger than just my classroom. Bonneville is actually a company that I run in. we're going to have some stuff heating up by the end of the year.
Yeah, for sure. And Ellen obviously has changed your life. And so fast forward several years, obviously Bonneville, and you're traveling the world on Speaker's Court. You've written 2 books. You've been recognized by NBC Nightly News, the Ashton Kutcher Foundation, and even the governor of North Carolina. I mean, you have a long list of accolades, and yet you're still in the classroom. Why
I
is
love
that,
it.
you know?
I,
What do you
I
want people
love
to
it.
understand about that?
For me, I feel like I am a practitioner. So in honestly, when I say this, people can get on stage and say any type of platitude. There you can say students matter. We can
Mhm.
say education is important for everybody. We can say people deserve equitable resources to make sure they have a successful future. But there is a complete difference and distinction between saying something or theory and then actual action. It's completely different type of ballgame. Like you read earlier, I'm trying to change through innovation. Great, but what am I doing in my classroom to
Right.
change
Yeah.
through innovation? And that is what I enjoy doing, man. Honestly, I love the kids.
Hmm.
I love being with my students. That it gives me some type of passion, some type of just reason for living. And people often ask, how come you don't become an administrator? I don't really have a desire to. How come you
Hmm.
don't go into being a superintendent? I don't have a desire to. My desire is to be a multimillionaire teacher who is doing great things in his classroom and then
Yes,
is
sir.
giving back to teachers and students like nobody has never seen before. And I believe we're going to get there.
Yeah, and I think I will be a very big supporter on your way to being a multi-million. I trust me, I got the bell clicked on YouTube, man. I'm with you.
Hey, thank you,
I
brother.
got you.
We're
And
figuring it out, man.
yes, sir. And so
Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of ask
Hmm.
what got you into education, because when you were young, or at least from my research, when I believed
Hmm.
it was a dream of you to kind of be a professional athlete, professional basketball player, and
Hmm.
you went to college, and that dream brought you to college. But like
Yeah.
most of us college athletes, me included, that dream has an endpoint, you know?
Yeah.
How did you pivot that dream, you know? Because being a teacher and a basketball player, then those are two
Yeah,
different
two totally different
lifestyles, you
things,
know?
right?
So
Man, oh my gosh. So I know for me and where I grew up at with about 13, 14,000 people, academics or sports were the only way that you're going to get out.
mhm,
And the unique thing about being a student in any given institution is that every child is brilliant, but it's depending upon the teachers that are in place. And oftentimes people fail to understand that, some districts may have better testing scores, but how many high quality teachers do they have at each grade level so students
mhm,
can have a high quality experience over and over again? Everybody isn't fortunate enough to have that. So basketball, honestly, I chose the NBA. I remember growing up because that's what I could see who makes a
mhm,
lot of money. Outside of that, I went to major in psychology. Everybody knows with psychology, you have to at least get a graduate degree and you have to keep going to school. But there was one thing that we used to do as college athletes is we would go to schools and do read alouds. And I'm about 6'4", 6'5". I'm honestly, probably some of the shortest one out of my teammates. But I would never forget when we would go into the school buildings and you can see the look in because I picked elementary on purpose. You could see the look in their faces when we walk in as if we were like some type of angels or
mhm.
superheroes. It was a look that it was a look of admiration. Like I've never seen that before. And the way it made me felt was like, that's pretty cool.
Right.
So I didn't plan on being an educator, but I think, just sort of natural gifts in regards to presenting and connecting and energy with people and, empathy. And those are high qualities for a great educator to have. And it just sort of seemed to mesh together.
Right.
And I'm grateful.
Yeah, and that actually leads me perfectly into my next question, is where you talk about being a naturally gifted teacher and at building relationships, especially with kids. Where do you think that gift comes from in you? And do you think that gift has to be natural for teachers and other educational professionals to be successful in their profession?
Well, one, I think it was basically the foundation of my home. I have an
Hmm.
outstanding family. Parents, Michael and Frida Bonner, are amazing. All of my siblings, Dre, Vonda, Candace, Kelly, Junior, Kyla, they're absolutely amazing. But what I will say is, an educator, even though I had a great foundation as a family, I had to bust my behind to become
Hmm.
better at relationship building, at culturally relevant teaching, at understanding implicit bias and how it plays into our everyday lives, understanding the suspension data and how it's skewed. Like I had to really work at that. And once I began to see, what it really is based upon quantitative and qualitative data,
Right.
that's when the relationships in the classroom for me began to become better. That's when students who were problematic for others will ultimately end up coming to my classroom, and over time, not
Hmm.
immediately, will figure out how to mesh together, and then their academics will follow behind that because they have self-efficacy, they have community, they have a relational piece with their teacher. it took a lot of work. It still takes a lot of work. I'm teaching at the Ron Clark Academy now. I've been teaching for 2 years there. It was just like being a beginning teacher all over again. But I knew that I can't lose if I prioritize relationships and my expectations first, and then the academics can come, and I'll continue to get better at that. So I
Right.
want every teacher to understand that as an educator, when you become an educator and you walk into their classroom, you are now embarking upon the evolution of a teacher. You are constantly going to be evolving every year, and you have to figure out how to switch, how to change the different vernacular, the newest songs, the different lingo. It's
Mhm.
just a part of our profession. And once you learn how to master being flexible, I think that'll be very critical for any teacher to be successful.
Yeah, that's actually a really, really great answer, and it kind of makes me reflect on my own. Because when you said problematic child, I was that problematic child, especially going into first and second grade. I remember I got suspended a lot. I was kind of always getting sent down to the office, and then I had this teacher. I went to a Spanish immersion school, and her name was Senora Marcy, and she really just took the time, and her entire just curriculum and the way that she approached learning was just completely different, and it genuinely made me I think that she changed how I experienced learning, because from then on I didn't get in trouble again until seventh, eighth grade of middle school, and it was even just like me, trying to be obnoxious and kind of get attention, but it was just the fact that I started to learn better, I started to pay attention more, and it was just because she just did a completely different way of thinking and kept up with kind of what we were doing as well. So
It's important, man.
yeah.
It's called, so even in the business world, it's called social capital. I don't
Mhm.
know why people, specifically some teachers or districts or whatever the case may be, tend to try to shift away from the relational piece. I firmly believe in content. I believe in, high academic excellence,
Mhm.
but everything we do is relational.
Yeah,
Just the reality of that. So I think the
absolutely.
more we embrace that in all facets, right? In when there's issues within the LGBTQAI plus community, when there's issues with students of color, Black students, Latinx students, and we fully go on and tackle that and figure out how to support them and love on them, coach them through it. That's high quality teaching right there.
Absolutely.
And you're going to be, as we continue to live, you're going to be able to see that separation there from teachers that are mediocre, districts that are mediocre, to
Mhm.
districts and teachers who are absolutely outstanding. Because when those situations happen, they are proactive instead of just being reactive.
Right. Yeah. And I think that, like you also said, is just that social capital and kind of keeping up with them. And one of the things that I noticed and watched that you did, that you put on your YouTube channel, was you actually played Fortnite with one of your kids. And
Oh yeah,
Fortnite, people don't realize is that's a game, made and targeted towards children, but it's taken over their entire lives.
for
Like
sure.
I feel like when at the peak of Fortnite, you were telling kids to stop doing the Fortnite dances and everything. And
Yeah.
so being able to, yeah, being
Listen,
able,
and they're losing. Teachers, you're losing.
right.
You're not gonna, especially with online learning.
Hmm.
Some students were playing the video games while they were in class, and they could have been paying attention, right? So I was just trying to leverage what I know they are interested in,
Hmm.
right? So I will play Fortnite. It's been a while since I streamed, but we've been playing Call of Duty Warzone lately, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I'm sure you know.
Mhm.
So
Yes,
like,
sir.
and for me, even, and that's the beautiful thing about understanding the relational piece and then understanding the innovation piece, right?
Hmm.
Eventually I'm gonna have a Bonneville esports team. And then one student's
There
going
you
to have a
go.
week where they stream, and then I will
Hmm.
pay them based upon the streams, and then they'll learn how to market, they'll learn how to brand, they'll learn how to innovate, they'll learn how to tie in the reading, math, science, and social study skills and put it into their reality and their daily practices. And I think that's where the innovation of education is happening at. I think some teachers were so uh, cocky in regards to thinking that children must pay attention to class because we say so. Failing to recognize they can learn a lot more from YouTube, and probably even more than what the students are instructing us to teach.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to challenge that traditional mold and let them know that we are definitely in a different type of era right now. This is the new era of education.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about being an African American in your profession as well, because you once said that you're like a unicorn in education, that there are only 2% of black males in the profession, and we're also in a very unique moment where between natural aging out and or retirements of teachers, and now the COVID-19 pandemic pushing even more out of the profession, what would you say to young black men or even older black men who may be looking for a new career becoming a teacher?
You are brilliant. You are absolutely amazing. You're intelligent. You can do anything you literally put your mind to. If you historically study your people and who you are, you have persevered through some of the most heinous and asinine acts of hate throughout history.
Mm.
And the beautiful thing about becoming an educator, if you ask me, is one of the most powerful professions in the world, because scientifically, you literally have the ability to help brains form new thought patterns and new neurons and synapses and connections. When it comes to just, holistically and into an environment, you have the ability to help actually shift a child's life. You just said it was one teacher for you, right? So I hope people understand the power of being that teacher and how the world is yearning for that. It's funny how we know the history of the patterns of America and the misogynistic attitudes and the racism and stuff. And now I think it's funny how in life, students of color are actually the majority in the education system. Women are actually coming more to power now. And I
Mm.
think our world is yearning for change agents, people who are willing to step up to the plate, to think differently, to think in a place that will spark interest in our students. And as a Black man, only 2% of his education field, I have noticed I've been able to do that. Now, it comes with the battle because there's something called the invisible tax. The invisible tax is due to districts and their failure to recognize their own bias, they place problematic students within your classroom because they feel that you can handle them or you're a disciplinarian.
Right.
Failing to recognize that every teacher should be a disciplinarian and every
Mm.
teacher should be able to handle whatever student you put in their classroom. So you deal with those microaggressions, but as long as you're outspoken about those, and that you understand your value and place, I think any Black male or young student who may be listening to this that wants to be an educator, you'll be shocked how much of a difference you can make.
Yeah, absolutely. And as being half Black myself, and kind of, I never actually had a Black teacher, a Black male teacher in my life. And so I was incredibly thankful. I genuinely, now that I think about it, I never actually really had a Black role model in my life outside of my father.
Yeah.
And to be able to say that out loud and then realize how lucky I am to have my father in my life and to have that relationship and to have his support no matter what I do, it's incredibly, incredibly powerful. But it's at the same time heartbreaking because it's like there needs to be more people who look like us that can be role models, that don't just have to be basketball players or rappers. You know what I'm saying? They can be educators like Michael Bonner.
Listen, bro, it's Miriam Wright Edelman says that Miriam Wright Edelman says you can't be what you can't see. There's a reason why Johnny, when you ask him what he wants to be, he has a range to choose: a doctor,
Mm-hmm.
dentist, psychiatrist. He may want to build electric vehicles that will change the world, that can fly,
Right.
right? Elon Musk somehow before now had that vision as a child to break something out of the mold. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same concept for our Black children, for our Latinx children, for our Asian children. It's the same concept. And the unique thing about at the Ron Clark Academy, it's become a norm for our students because we have about 10 Black men that work there that are teachers and that work inside of the admin part. We all
Mm-hmm.
wear suits, we all try to be presentable. And I'm glad that that's becoming a norm in the education field because it is needed, man. The media is a very tricky thing. And if people pay attention to it enough, they're going to think certain individuals should be this way and they should act like this. And the reality is the furthest thing from the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And circling back a little bit, you also talked about kind of understanding your own history, and I just want to pick your brain really
So
about how you approached this last Black History Month, especially with everything that happened over the summer with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and that then sparked this whole kind of social revolution to kind of understand a little bit more and to kind of fight back. And so I was just wondering, because learning how U.S. history, at least for me in school, especially Black history, it kind of felt like I was just reading an abstract of it. Like there was a civil rights movement happen. Thanks to MLK, Black people were cool now. That's kind of what it was. And so I'm just kind of wondering what your thoughts are on how Black history is taught in our education system, what changes need to be made, things like that.
there needs to be an aggressive attack towards it. In regards to, even if you just look at the specific standards, they're not telling you to address those things. I'm sad to, it's sad for me to say, but I didn't learn about Shirley Chisholm until this past year, that there
Yeah,
was a Black woman that actually ran for the Democratic presidential candidate, like nomination. Like, it's mind blowing, right?
I
So
never heard about that.
right, yeah, see, right. So once you start uncovering the layers, because when you look at primary resources, which is first account, and then secondary resources, which is somebody that may have witnessed it or heard about the event, when we teach that in social studies, you will notice that people that have finances and resources and power are going to control the primary resources. Who is writing the standards? Who is writing the curriculum for our schools? I think one of my coworkers, they showed me there's a textbook in Texas that called, slaves or enslaved people workers, as if it was a choice, right?
Right.
So I think that there needs to be a true attack towards it. You see people trying to do that. The Conscious Kid is a great resource, EduColor. There's so many different, the Tolerance, tolerance.org. There's so many organizations that are trying to embrace anti-racist education, but there is a fight for that. There's a battle happening in education because people do not like to be woken up by the norm, woken up by the reality of what we're dealing with. So, for example, right. A good thing is that, last week, I think it was, Read Across America Day with Dr. Seuss. Clear data on, the depiction of how Dr. Seuss drew people of color, certain Asian people, completely racist. And you will see people literally, man, it's almost like you're literally waking them up from a dream, because they don't want to embrace that. But they're failing to recognize, if I say I love my students, I'm making them live in that nightmare and that reality. And that's not okay, right? So for me, I was pulling up as many people as I possibly could. I was teaching American Revolutionary War, so I had to deviate from that and highlight somebody great in the African-American community and then circle right back to it. And I'm okay with that. And I had to make sure I tell myself during Spanish Heritage Month, during Asian Heritage Month, I need to have the same energy because there's so much beauty in every culture, but we must get to a point in America to recognize that we have a whitewashed curriculum that is a mirror for the majority, for more white people, but we have more students of color. Like, we need a shift, and it just needs to happen.
Absolutely. I mean, we can't call ourselves the perfect melting pot or microcosm of what humanity is without, and then at the same time be teaching this whitewashed version of history just because that they're the victors.
Jasper, I want to let you go because for me, and that's the frustration for me, honestly, because I've been so grateful. Like, you were naming the accolades, and I'm beyond grateful to God. Like, it's a dream come true for me because I know where I grew up and where I come from. But it's also a battle as well because I am a Black man speaking about this in the education field. There are hundreds of educational consultants and people that do keynote speeches, right? I'm pretty good. I have some skills, right?
You're great, man. You're great. But
it's like oftentimes I catch the body language and the negativity because I will speak about it, while others have the privilege not to. And what I'm encouraging people is, if people they're coming to your districts, to your conferences, if they're not speaking about real issues and real solutions, you have to ask yourself, are they providing me a quality meal that's going to help me be a better person? Or are they just giving me something just for the moment that's just going to go and it can't be applicable? So it's
absolutely.
It's big stuff, man.
Yeah, no, for sure. And thank you again for coming on here and talking to us about it. That's all the questions that I have for you. Like the great Sean Evans says, though, there's nothing left to do but roll out the red carpet for you. So take these next 30 seconds to tell the listeners about what you got going on in your life and the exciting things that are coming up.
Oh, man. So what I got going on in my life right now, honestly, is, COVID sort of shut down a lot of speeches and stuff, but that's okay. They're being rescheduled. And what I'm doing now is spending more time honing my craft as a sixth grade ELA teacher, as a social studies teacher. I'm working on putting the innovation piece in my classroom. If you listen to the podcast, definitely check out my sixth graders. I've been working on business, entrepreneurship along with reading. They have built their own podcast called 23 on the Mic, where they have a CEO, board of directors, their own host and graphics team. Like, I'm just the investor. So that is pretty exciting to see them roll out and create their own business. Awesome. And they're also learning about the stock market for 4th and 6th grade on how to invest. So I'm really just I'm practicing what I'm preaching right now this season, if that makes sense, Josh. I'm getting that done.
That is literally the best thing that we all could have heard. I mean, just the fact that you are so adamant. So, I mean, I wish that I would have known about stocks when I was in 4th grade. The fact that they're already getting this knowledge and getting this investment and these life skills is incredible. So you are a one of a kind, Michael Bonner. Thank you so much again for being on here. Please go check his links out to his socials. Will be linked in the description again. Thank you so much, taking the time again, man. Really, like I'm speechless. Like, I'm trying. I don't want to do this intro because I keep on having this conversation, man. But you are.
Man, we could keep going, but no,
I
appreciate you, bro.
All right, thank you. Take care, man.
You too.
Thanks for listening to Behind the Podium, a podcast series brought to you by Fusion Learning Partners. Visit our website, fusionlp.org, for the full lineup of podcasts and for all the exciting events we have coming up.